This is my last video over exponents. So up until this point, I've covered the basics of exponents and I've covered all of the 8 properties that go with exponents. So in this video, we're going to be working some complicated examples that involve all of those 8 properties. So let's go ahead and reference those 8 properties before we get started on our homework examples. Now, we've worked through all of these properties individually in other videos, and we've did some homework problems that involve these one by one. But now we're going to see some of the really complicated examples where it may not be obvious what the first step is in solving these problems. So let's go ahead and look at our first example that I have here, example 1. I have negative 3x cubed y to the negative second, all to the third power, and that is over 2a to the negative third, b, and that is all to the third power. Now, in preparation for your own homework, I suggest that you pause the video and see if you can get the correct answer to this problem. Now, I'd like to remind you that there's lots of different ways to start these types of problems, and most of the time, any route you're going to take is okay, of course, as long as you're obviously following your properties. But I want to start with the common mistake that I see in this problem so you don't make this mistake anymore. So what I've been emphasizing is to get rid of your bad attitudes right away. But in this problem, if you do it the way that we've typically been doing it, it's going to give you a wrong answer. And because it all goes back to PEMDAS, where I do my parentheses first, and then I do my exponents, multiplication, division, and addition, subtraction. So if you think that you can get rid of this guy and this guy by switching him floors, that actually violates your exponent rule. Because you need to be simplifying your exponents first before you tackle your division. And if you move those around the division sign there, that tells you you're doing division before you even focus on your exponents. So that is the wrong way to start this guy. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get rid of your negative exponents, but if you did it that way, it would actually make it a little bit more complicated. And let me write it out the way it would look like if you wanted to start that way. So it would basically give me a fraction on the top and the fraction on the bottom, which is doable by all means, but I don't think that that's the best way to go about this problem. So now that I have a clean slate, let me tell you what I think is the best way to go about this problem. And I think it is to actually tackle the outside exponents first. So I'm going to take this 3 exponent and distribute it through the top and distribute it through the bottom since they happen to be the same exponent. So on the top, I have a negative 3, don't forget about the negative, 3 amount of times. That ends up with a negative 27. X to the 3 times 3 gives me x to the 9th, and y to the negative 2 times 3 gives me y to the negative 6. In the basement, 2 cubed gives me 8. A to the negative 3 times 3 gives me a to the negative 9, and b to the third power just gives me b to the third. Now, to finish this example, now I can finally move my bad attitudes, or my negative exponents. So I'm going to move this y guy downstairs, and I'm going to move my a upstairs. So that gives me a negative 27, a to the 9th, x to the 9th, and I put my a in here first because I write these in alphabetical order. Downstairs I have 8, b to the third, y to the positive 6. Now, why didn't I move this negative 27? It's because the negative is not a bad attitude. It's not an exponent. It's a number out in front. So what else could I do in this problem? And the answer is nothing. I cannot simplify 27 divided by 8, and I can't simplify anything else because they are not similar bases. All of my bases are different variables. So that means I already have the final answer to this example here. So let's move on to my second example, and this one is definitely more complicated than my first example. But hopefully we've worked through enough of these that you know how to do these correctly, so I suggest you pause the video and see if you can get this guy on your own. So this one I'm going to go back to the emphasis that I've been saying along the way. Simplify the inside of your parentheses first and take care of those bad attitudes as early as you possibly can, and then after that move on to your outside exponents. So the first thing I'm going to do here is move all of my bad attitudes to the floor that they would rather be on. So that gives me a 9a squared over 8b squared, all to the negative second power, times 3b squared over 2a squared, all to the third power. Again, I'm going to focus on simplifying my inside before I get to my exponents on the outside. So I can combine all of these like guys on the inside. So I have 9a cubed over 8b cubed to the negative second power times 3b cubed over 2a to the fourth. And that is all to the third power. Now I've simplified everything on the inside completely, so now let me look at my exponents on the outside. This exponent has a negative attitude, so I'm going to do that by flipping the whole house. So I'm going to rewrite that as 8b cubed over 9a cubed to the positive second exponent. Now I can simplify this guy over here, but to keep my steps consistent, I'm going to go ahead and just rewrite them as is. Okay, so now I'm going to simplify these exponents on the outside by distributing them through. So that gives me with 8 squared, or 64, b to the 6th, because I multiply my exponents, 9 squared, or 81, a to the 6th, times 3 cubed, 27, b to the 3 times 3 gives me b to the 9th, over 2 cubed gives me 8, and a to the 4 cubed gives me a to the 4 times 3, or a to the 12th. So I've taken care of each of these fractions individually, but now my goal is to multiply them. So remember when I told you back in the fraction videos, it's always better to reduce first and then multiply straight across last. So let's try and do that here. Let's see what I can reduce. With my 64 and my 8 goes into both of them evenly. So 8 divided by itself gives me 1, and 64 divided by 8 gives me 8. With the 27 and 81, 27 actually goes into both of those evenly. 27 divided by itself gives you 1, and 27 goes into 81 3 times. Now you might not have picked that out right away. You might have picked smaller factors like 9 or 3, and that's fine if you start with those. Just keep making sure to keep reducing as far as possible. And I also have to worry about my variables. So on the top, I have b to the 6th times b to the 9th, which I can combine. And on the bottom, I have a to the 6th times a to the 12th, which I can combine. So let us finally multiply this straight across. On the top, 8 times 1 gives me 8. B to the 6th, b to the 9th. I add those exponents. 6 plus 9 gives me 15. And on the bottom, 3 times 1 gives me 3. And a to the 6th times a to the 12th, add them, gives me a to the 18th. I need to confirm that I really am finished, and I do that by kind of 2 double checks at this point. Do I have any more similar bases, which I don't? And do I have any negative exponents, or do I have any bad attitudes? And I don't at this point either. So I'm convinced that I'm to my final answer here. So I'm going to box this answer and I'm going to hand him in. So at this point, I think I've worked through enough examples that you will be able to succeed at your homework. Now, the examples that I may have given throughout the property videos or in this video may not replicate your homework examples exactly, but I think that I've given you enough details to help you lead your own way through it. Now, the reason that I don't give you exact examples is because sometimes later on, you might see other examples that aren't identical to things that we have seen in the past. And you need to be prepared to figure out how to do those. So you need to take the concepts that we've learned and apply them in your own sort of way. So this is where I stop all my exponent videos, and this is where you go and try and work on your homework.